Welcome to Official History World, where history comes alive. Explore the events, empires, and people that shaped our world. Subscribe and be part of our journey through time.
The Allied invasion of Normandy, known as D-Day, was one of the most significant military operations of World War II. It marked the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation. Here's a detailed overview of D-Day from start to finish. By 1944, Nazi Germany had occupied most of Western Europe. The Allied leaders, including U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, decided that a large-scale invasion of Western Europe was necessary to open a new front against the Germans and relieve pressure on the Eastern Front, where the Soviets were fighting a brutal war. The invasion was meticulously planned and involved a massive buildup of troops, equipment, and supplies. Planning for D-Day began years in advance, with various elements coming together to create a complex operation. Key aspects of the planning included the selection of the landing sites. 5 beaches along the Normandy coast were chosen for the amphibious assault: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Deception was also very important. To mislead the Germans about the actual location of the invasion, a campaign of deception codenamed Operation Fortitude was carried out. It included the creation of fake armies and radio traffic. Logistics: a massive logistical effort was required to transport troops, vehicles, and supplies to England. Ports were expanded and artificial harbors known as mulberry harbors were constructed to offload cargo. Finally, airborne assault. The night before D-Day, paratroopers and glider-borne troops were dropped behind enemy lines to secure key objectives, disrupt German defenses, and pave the way for the amphibious assault. On June 6, 1944, D-Day began in the early hours, with the following key events happening. Shortly after midnight, thousands of Allied paratroopers from the U.S., Britain, and Canada were dropped into Normandy. Their missions included securing bridges, capturing key points, and confusing German defenses. In the pre-dawn hours, Allied warships, including battleships and cruisers, commenced a massive bombardment of German coastal defenses, aiming to soften them up for the approaching landings. And then at dawn, landing craft and amphibious vehicles carrying American, British, Canadian, and other Allied troops began landing on the designated beaches. Each beach had its challenges. At Utah Beach, the Americans faced relatively light resistance and they were able to quickly secure the area. At Omaha Beach, that was where the most challenging efforts took place. Fierce German defenses, including fortified bunkers, caused heavy casualties, but through determination, American troops were eventually able to break through. At Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, British and Canadian troops landed at these beaches, and they faced varying degrees of resistance but were able to make steady progress. Despite the challenges at Omaha Beach, Allied forces gradually pushed inland. The landing forces linked up with paratroopers and glider troops who had secured key objectives. Over the following days, Allied forces continued to advance, securing the beachheads and expanding their foothold in Normandy. The mulberry harbors and other logistical infrastructure were critical to sustaining the invasion. To truly understand D-Day, we have to take a look at a soldier's account of what happened and see through their eyes. It was the early hours of June 6, 1944, and the sea was turbulent beneath the gray skies. Our landing craft rocked violently as we approached the coast of Normandy. I clutched the cold steel of my rifle and looked around at the faces of my comrades, all of us masked by fear and determination. We had trained for this moment for what had seemed like eternity, and now it was upon us. The deafening roar of the bombardment filled the air as our landing craft pushed toward Omaha Beach. The sky was alive with tracer fire, and the flashes of explosions painted an eerie, otherworldly scene. My heart pounded in my chest as we drew closer to the shore. As the ramp of the landing craft dropped with a metallic clank, chaos erupted. The deafening noise of machine gun fire and the shrill whistle of artillery rounds drowned everything else out. We were under fire and the beach seemed impossibly far away. I jumped into the waist-deep water, my heavy gear weighing me down. Bullets zipped through the water around me, and I had to dive underwater to escape them. The sea was red with the blood of fallen soldiers, and I felt a profound mix of terror and anger. We pushed toward taking cover behind the few obstacles that had been cleared on the beach. Artillery shells exploded all around us, and the sand was churned up by relentless gunfire. It felt like an eternity, but we moved ahead inch by agonizing inch. We shouted encouragement to one another, helped the wounded, and pressed on. I saw medics performing miracles, and I witnessed acts of heroism that defy description. Hours passed like minutes as we fought our way off the beach and into the heart of Normandy. We had a mission, and nothing could stop us. The chaos of that morning had a surreal quality, as if we were in a terrible dream from which there was no waking. But as the sun began to break through the clouds, I looked around at the devastation and realized the tremendous cost of our progress. The beach was littered with the wreckage of tanks, landing craft, and the fallen. But we had breached the enemy's defenses, and the liberation of Europe had begun. D-Day was a resounding success, but the battle for Normandy continued for several weeks afterwards. Allied forces faced stiff resistance as they pushed inland, but with determination and overwhelming numbers, they were eventually able to lead the liberation of Paris in August of 1944. The successful D-Day invasion marked the beginning of the end for the Nazi Germans in Western Europe and played a pivotal role in the eventual defeat of the Axis powers in World War II. D-Day remains a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and the determination of Allied forces to free Europe from tyranny, and is remembered as one of the most significant moments in modern history.
Premium Forever Love necklace to my beautiful love. Buy this necklace, click my YouTube video description product link, and shop now.